Have you ever sat in a room full of people you love and felt completely unseen? That's what it felt like that day at my grandfather's will reading. My parents sat at the front of the table, calm, composed, like they were in control of everything, not grieving, not shaken, just waiting for what they believed was theirs. I was there too, not out of hope, not out of greed, but because a part of me, a small, tired part, still wondered if maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. You see, I'm Eleanor, the older child, the one who always did everything right, and yet somehow I was always second. Brian, my younger brother, was the golden one, the one they celebrated, protected, poured everything into, while I became the strong one, the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't need anything or anyone. But that's not true, is it? Even strong people want to be seen. Even quiet children hope someone will speak up for them. If you've ever felt like the invisible one in your own family, you're not alone. Stick with me, because what happened next changed everything. Brian was always the center of the room, of their smiles, of every plan. At 7, he had a backyard carnival. Ponies, magician, balloons floating above the trees. At 10, I got a homemade cake and one rushed hug. I used to wonder, was I asking for too much? Maybe I was just harder to love. Maybe being quiet, independent, capable meant I didn't need anything more. But I did. I needed what Brian got so easily. Warmth, attention, that soft kind of love you don't have to earn. When I brought home straight A's, they nodded and said, "We expected that." When Brian passed with C's, it was pizza night, family selfies, proud Facebook posts. I worked hard, every club, every scholarship, while Brian changed majors, dropped out. Still, he got a second car. I took the bus in the rain. Ever been there, doing your best and still feeling like you're invisible? If that hits something in you, don't scroll. Stay with me. It's just starting to unfold. By 26, I bought my own condo. 1 bedroom, quiet street, paid in my name, not a palace, but mine. I invited my parents over. They walked in, looked around once. "It's nice," Mom said flatly. "You've always been self-sufficient. We don't worry about you." That wasn't a compliment. It was dismissal wrapped in praise. Brian still lived at home, still figuring things out. Another startup idea, another round of support. Dad called it potential. Brian just needs a little boost. And again, I was reminded he was the project worth investing in. I was already finished, already shelved. They didn't see how hard I'd worked or how much I'd sacrificed to stand on my own. But what they couldn't see was that silence had built something stronger, not just success, resolve. Because I knew one day they'd try to erase me completely, and when that day came, I'd be ready. Have you ever felt that too? That quiet fire in your chest, like one day you'd stop letting them decide your worth. That day came sooner than I thought. When Grandpa James passed, I didn't cry. Not right away. Not because I didn't love him, but because grief had never been safe in our house. Tears were private, emotions were weakness, and the spotlight was always on Brian. At the funeral, my parents sat beside him. Mom's hand on his back, Dad whispering support. I sat 1 row behind, alone. I gave a short eulogy, mentioned how Grandpa never forgot my birthdays. Even when he couldn't come, he sent handwritten cards. Mom blinked, like she didn't remember. Maybe she didn't. 2 weeks later, a letter came from the lawyer. The will would be read next Thursday, noon. I felt something stir inside me, a tiny thread of hope. That maybe, just maybe, he had remembered me in a way they never had. Then the next day, another envelope from Grandma Rose. Inside was a note, small and careful. "Eleanor, your grandfather made sure of something. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't know what that meant yet, but I knew this: I had to be there. I took the day off work, pressed my blazer, clean shoes, hair neat. I walked into the law office with my head high and saw them, Charles and Linda, already seated. Brian sat beside them, quiet. When they noticed me, Dad smirked. Mom gave that polite, cold smile, like I was a minor inconvenience. Brian gave a small wave. I nodded. We hadn't spoken in months. I took a seat across the table. The lawyer shuffled the papers. The room fell silent. He began with the estate Grandpa's assets divided among his children, Charles included. Then came the grandchildren, just two of us, Brian and me. When the lawyer said equal share, I saw it. The flicker in my parents' eyes. Attention. A calculation. Then Charles cleared his throat, and with a calm, rehearsed voice he said, "We'll be accepting Eleanor's portion on her behalf." He didn't even ask, didn't look at me, as if I didn't exist, as if I wasn't sitting right there. For a second, no one moved. The air went stiff. I opened my mouth to speak, but someone beat me to it. Grandma Rose. She stood slowly, hands steady on the table, her voice soft but firm. "I think we should hear the rest of the will." The lawyer paused, then gave her a respectful nod and kept reading. My heart pounded. I stared at the paper in front of him, waiting to hear my name again. When he said it, Eleanor Jane Whitmore, and confirmed I was to receive an equal share, my mother shifted in her seat. My father's jaw clenched. Charles spoke again. "Let's be reasonable," he said. "She's doing fine. Has a condo, a job, no debt." Then came Linda's sweet, rehearsed tone. "Eleanor's always been so generous. She wouldn't mind helping her brother. He's the dreamer in the family." I sat still, but inside something began to rise, and this time I wasn't going to let them rewrite me. I looked at them, the people who raised me. Still talking about me? Not to me. I kept my voice calm. I don't need anyone to accept anything on my behalf. Dad turned to me sharply. The smile was gone. "This isn't about you, Eleanor. It's about family, about doing what's right." Mom nodded softly. "Don't let pride get in the way, sweetheart. You've always been practical. Be wise." But this wasn't about pride, or money, or practicality. It was about years of silence, of being pushed aside, of being told I didn't need anything, so I didn't deserve anything. I took a breath and said it again. "I'm not giving up what Grandpa left me." Brian looked down at the floor. He still hadn't said a word, not even to stop them. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Legally, unless Eleanor signs a waiver, the inheritance is entirely hers." Dad's face darkened, and for the first time he realized I wasn't backing down. Charles didn't shout. He did something worse. He started listing every sacrifice they'd made. The braces, the semester of books we helped with, the roof you lived under during college. Each word landed like a stone. "Not love, not memory, just a bill. You owe us Eleanor," he said. "We raised you. Don't forget that," Linda added gently. "If you loved us, you'd do what's right for the family." My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. My voice felt like stone. Then a hand touched mine. Grandma Rose. Her grip was warm, her eyes steady. "You don't owe them anything," she whispered. "And your grandfather knew it." In that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't just about money. It was about taking up space, about not shrinking anymore. And I was done disappearing. After the reading, no one spoke to me. My parents stormed out, cold glares, sharp whispers, Brian trailing behind like a shadow. I stayed in my seat. The lawyer's desk was empty now, but the words still echoed. Eleanor Jane Whitmore, entitled to one equal share. It sounded simple, but in my family, fairness always felt like a luxury. I drove home in silence, no music, no thoughts, just breath. When I unlocked my door, the messages had already started. From Mom, "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Was it worth it?" From Dad, "Hope you enjoy your blood money." And from Brian, "I didn't ask for any of this." That one hurt the most. I didn't sleep that night, just walked in circles, whispers from childhood returning. Why can't you just let things go? But deep down, I knew I couldn't let this go. Not this time. By the third day, I packed a bag and turned off my phone. I needed space, real space. I drove to Grandpa's old cabin by the lake, the one he built with his own hands, where he taught me to fish, where Grandma Rose used to sneak me cookies when no one was looking. The door creaked like it remembered me. The air smelled of dust and pine. I lit a fire, wrapped myself in an old blanket. and finally let the tears fall. Grief came not just for Grandpa, but for every version of me that begged for love and never got it. The next morning, I opened the guest room drawer, inside a sealed envelope. My name on the front, his handwriting. Careful, blocky, certain. My fingers trembled, my breath held, and I knew this letter would break something open or finally make me whole. I sat on the floor, held the letter like it might vanish. I opened it slowly. Grandpa's words stared back at me, steady, quiet, full of weight. Eleanor, if you're reading this, then the will has already been read. I imagine your parents are making it messy. I smiled, a sad smile. He always saw through things, even when he said nothing. I want you to know I saw it all. The way they overlooked you, the way they poured into Brian and told you to be strong. Tears blurred the ink. I kept reading. You were never invisible to me. This inheritance isn't a gift. It's not because you needed it, it's because you earned it. Every day you kept going even when no one clapped. I exhaled shaky, like I'd been holding my breath for years. Wow, your voice matters, Eleanor. Don't let them take it again. I held that letter to my chest, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Grandma's voice was calm, but every word hit like thunder. Months before your grandfather passed, she said your parents tried to pressure him. They wanted the will changed. Said Brian needed everything. Said I was already fine, capable, independent, the usual labels, but Grandpa refused. And not just with words. He worked with his lawyer, with Grandma. Quietly, carefully. They added a clause buried deep in the documents. Anyone who tried to manipulate or redirect the inheritance would lose their claim entirely. It was airtight, intentional, enforceable, a final act of protection. And now, because of what Charles and Linda did at the will reading, that clause had triggered. They didn't just try to take my share. They put their own inheritance at risk, and there was nothing they could do to undo it. They'd crossed the line, and Grandpa had already closed the door behind them. They're furious, Grandma said. Your father says you turned us all against him. I didn't answer right away. Part of me still wanted to care, but another part, the tired part, felt relief. Then she added, we're removing him as executor. I froze. The rest of the estate, she continued, will be handled by me and the firm. It's what your grandfather wanted in case things got ugly. I sat down hard, didn't even realize I'd been standing. For the first time in my life, someone had done more than say they believed me. They had planned for it, legally, silently, with love that looked like action. That planning was saving me from being erased, and now the golden image they built around Brian was starting to crack. Not because of me, but because truth doesn't stay buried forever, and the fallout was only just beginning. That night, there was a knock at my door. Hard, sharp, uninvited. I opened it. Slowly, Charles and Linda stood there, faces stiff, eyes burning. You had this planned, Dad hissed. You manipulated her. You poisoned your grandfather against us. I didn't move, didn't flinch. Grandpa made his choices, I said quietly. And you made yours. Mom stepped forward, hands twisting her purse strap. Don't do this, Eleanor. Just sign it over. Brian needs this. I looked at her, at the woman who raised me but never really saw me. No, I said. Steady. Sure. I needed a family for 28 years, and I never got one. They froze. Something in them broke. Then Dad laughed, bitter, cold. Well, then he spat, enjoy the money, because after this, you don't have a family anymore. And just like that, they walked out. And for the first time, I didn't cry. They left, and I stood there in the doorway of my own apartment, still, silent, not shaking, not broken, just awake. I didn't lose a family that night. I lost people who had never truly stood by me. And in their place, I found something deeper, a part of me I had been forced to hide for years. The girl they taught to be small. She stood tall now, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Days passed in a strange, peaceful fog. No more texts, no guilt-laced voicemails, just quiet. And then one afternoon, as I reached for my keys, there was another knock, this one softer, uncertain. I looked through the peephole. It was Brian. I stared at him through the peephole. Brian, hoodie on, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes tired, unsure. I opened the door, slow, quiet. We didn't speak. I stepped aside. He walked in. He didn't sit, just stood there like he didn't know where he belonged. I didn't know they were going to do that, he said. At the will reading, I didn't ask for it. I nodded once. I believe that, I said. But you didn't stop them either. He flinched. I know, he whispered, and I should have. The silence returned, thicker now, but not cruel. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out something folded, soft at the edges. It was a letter. Grandpa's handwriting. I got one too, Brian said. Not warm like yours, but honest. And slowly, he began to tell me what it said. Brian held the letter like it was heavy, not in weight, but in truth. He said he saw what they did. Brian began, voice low, that letting them shape me turned me into their legacy instead of my own person. I stayed quiet, let him speak. He told me to stop letting others fight my battles, to grow up, to fix what I can, to apologize. His hands shook slightly. I'm sorry, Eleanor. Not just for the inheritance, for everything. He finally looked at me. I let them push you aside, and I coasted. I always knew it wasn't fair, but it was easier to ignore than confront the truth. I swallowed hard. It wasn't a full undoing, but it was real, and that mattered. We stood there, two siblings, quiet in the space between damage and healing. We finally sat down. The silence softened, turned into something almost safe. We talked for hours. About the birthdays, the science fair, the showcase they never came to. Brian listened, really listened. No defense, no excuses. Then he said something I didn't expect. Being the favorite, it wasn't freedom, it was a cage. I looked at him. He wasn't joking. Every time I failed, they cleaned it up, paid it off, told me I was special anyway. He paused, breathing slowly. But I never learned to stand, not the way you did. I'm 25, he said, and I've never had to earn anything. Then he looked at me, clear, honest. You built your life brick by brick. I envy that. And for the first time since we were kids, I believed we could rebuild something too. We sat in quiet for a moment. No tension, no history pulling us backward, just breath. Then Brian spoke again. I'm going back to school. I blinked. What? With my part of the inheritance, he said. I'm enrolling at the community college, studying software design, maybe finance later. I want to build something real, for once, something that's mine. I didn't cry, but something in me softened, because that wasn't just a plan. It was a break in the pattern, a choice to stop living in their shadow and start walking in his own light. I think Grandpa would be proud, I said. Brian nodded. I know he would. Then we hugged, not out of guilt or habit, but because it was time, and we were ready. It's been 6 months since the will reading. My parents still won't speak to me. They've cut Brian off too. Said I poisoned him. Said I turned their golden boy against them. Brian says it hurts, but also feels lighter, like he can finally breathe. As for me, I've stopped waiting for their approval, stopped hoping for a version of them that doesn't exist. Instead, I've been building something new. With part of my inheritance, I started a mentorship fund for young women in underrepresented fields, girls like me who were told to stay quiet while their brothers were handed praise. I named it after Grandpa, James's fund, a space for those who were overlooked too long. It's not about revenge, it's about repair. And it's just the beginning. I'm also back in therapy, not because I'm broken, but because healing isn't a straight line. Some days the old voices creep in. You're too much. You don't need anyone. Stay quiet. Be grateful. But I'm learning to separate who I am from who they told me to be. I'm learning that strength doesn't mean silence, that needing support doesn't make you weak. Brian's thriving in school. He sends me screenshots of his grades, his project drafts. Sometimes I tease him. So now you're the nerd in the family. He laughs every time. And somehow that laughter feels like a bridge between the past and something better. We started a new tradition, Sibling Sundays. Once a month, No phones, no parents, just us. Pancakes, walks, stories that finally belong to both of us. Grandma Rose is still our anchor. She calls every week, checks in, shares recipes, tells old stories we never knew. She always ends with the same words, "You two are rewriting the story. Don't stop now." And she's right, because family isn't just who raised you. It's who shows up, who listens, who helps you grow. Brian and I lost the version of family we were taught to protect. But in that loss, we found something real. Not perfect, but honest. Built from hard conversations and small, consistent care. The past still lingers, but it no longer controls the room. We're not erasing what happened, we're building beyond it. And sometimes that's the most powerful kind of healing there is. Grandma Rose is still our anchor. She calls every week, checks in, shares recipes, tells old stories we never knew. She always ends with the same words, "You two are rewriting the story. Don't stop now." And she's right, because family isn't just who raised you, it's who shows up, who listens, who helps you grow. Brian and I lost the version of family we were taught to protect, but in that loss, we found something real. Not perfect, but honest. Built from hard conversations and small, consistent care. The past still lingers, but it no longer controls the room. We're not erasing what happened, we're building beyond it. And sometimes that's the most powerful kind of healing there is. Sometimes I still think about writing them a letter. Not to forgive, not to reopen old doors, just to say, I see it now, all of it. The favoritism, the silence, the weight I carried that was never mine. But I don't send it. Because I've learned some things don't need to be said out loud to be released. Letting go isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing not to carry the story forward. Choosing peace over proving, choosing future over fixing. Brian asked once, "Do you think they'll ever change?" I paused. "I don't know," I said. "But I know I don't need them to in order to move on." That answer surprised me, but it felt true. And truth, not love, is what finally set me free. Grandpa used to say, legacy isn't about what you leave behind, it's about what you stand for while you're still here. I used to think legacy meant family name, bloodline, tradition. Now I know better. Legacy is action. It's choosing truth when silence is easier. It's protecting someone even when no one else sees them. That's what Grandpa did for me, not just with money, but with intention. With love written in legal ink and quiet letters. He gave me the space to stop surviving and start becoming. That's the kind of legacy I want to pass on. To the girls in my mentorship fund. To Brian. To the version of myself that never stopped hoping. Because in the end, the family you choose can become the one that truly lasts. The cabin by the lake I still visit sometimes. Not to escape, but to remember. It's quiet there. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. I sit on the old porch with Grandpa's letter in my hand. The wood creaks beneath me. The air smells like pine and sun-warmed earth. It's where I first heard the truth spoken just for me, where I let myself cry not out of weakness but release. Sometimes Brian comes with me. We skip stones. We don't talk much. We don't need to. Healing doesn't always need words. Sometimes it just needs space. Here, I don't feel like a guest in someone else's life. I feel like me. Whole, rooted, finally home. Grandma Rose never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her strength wasn't loud, it was steady, the kind that holds you up without ever taking the spotlight. After everything happened, she never said, "I told you so." She just showed up. She'd leave homemade soup on my doorstep, mail me old photos of Grandpa smiling me on his lap, both of us grinning like the world was simple. She once said, "Your grandfather didn't just love you, he trusted you." That stayed with me, because love is beautiful, but trust, that's rarer. Grandma never tried to fix me. She just made space for me to fix myself. And in a world that kept telling me to shrink, she reminded me softly to grow. That's what quiet power looks like. And that's the kind I carry now. One evening, Brian and I sat by the lake sun, low water still. He skipped a stone, then said, "You know what's strange? They gave me everything, but I never felt trusted." I looked at him. He wasn't angry, just honest. They protected me so much I never had to face myself. Every mistake they covered it. Every doubt they ignored it. He paused. They thought love was shelter, but really it became a cage. I let his words settle, then said, I used to envy you. I envied you, he replied, smiling. It hit me then we were both raised in imbalance. Two kids on opposite ends of a scale no one ever tried to level, and now for the first time we were finally walking side by side. That night, as we packed up to leave the cabin, Brian turned to me. Do you think they ever saw us as equals? I didn't answer right away. I didn't have to. Some truths don't need to be said. They live in what was missing. The birthday parties, the one-sided praise, the way I was expected to carry while he was expected to shine. But now things felt different. Not perfect, but balanced. We were both learning what no one had taught us, that love isn't currency, and worth isn't assigned by attention. As we closed the cabin door, Brian smiled at me. I'm glad you didn't give in, he said. I smiled back. Me too. Because if I had, neither of us would have made it to this place of truth. Back in the city, life moved forward. Work, mornings, grocery runs, quiet, steady days. But something had changed. Not around me, within me. I no longer checked my phone hoping for their names. No more searching for their approval in the empty corners of my accomplishments. I stopped shrinking in meetings, stopped apologizing for being direct, stopped softening my voice just to make others comfortable. Because I'm not the same girl who walked into that will reading hoping to be seen. I've seen myself now, fully, honestly, without shame. And once you taste that kind of clarity, you can't go back to begging. The silence from my parents, it no longer hurts. It just confirms that I made the right choice. One afternoon, Grandma Rose called, her voice warm like a blanket I didn't know I needed. I found something she said. Thought you should have it. She came by that weekend holding a small box inside a necklace, a simple gold locket. Grandpa's initials on one side, mine on the other. He had it made a year before he passed, she said softly. He told me Eleanor won't need reminding, but I want her to have it anyway. I held it in my hand, heart full, throat tight. Love doesn't always show up when or how we expect. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it waits. But real love, the kind that sees you, it never disappears. And now I carried it with me, not just around my neck, but in every part of who I was becoming. Wearing that locket felt like armor, not to defend myself, but to remind myself I didn't need to. I had already won the battle they never acknowledged, the one for my own worth. Every time I touched the chain, I remembered Grandpa's words. You earned this. Every day you kept going, and now I move through the world differently. Not harder, not colder, just clearer. I stopped over-explaining, stopped justifying my success, stopped waiting for praise from people who never learned how to give it. It's powerful what happens when someone truly sees you. Not for what you produce, not for what you prove, but just for being you. That's the kind of strength no one can take away. Not anymore. Charles and Linda still haven't reached out. No calls, no texts, no apology, just silence, the kind that used to hurt, but now feels like distance. Clean, clear, final. Brian hears from them sometimes. Not real conversations, just guilt-wrapped messages. You've changed. We barely recognize you. He told me once I think they miss control, not connection. I nodded, because I knew exactly what he meant. I used to ache for their words. Now I crave something else entirely, peace. Peace that doesn't depend on anyone's permission. Some people spend their lives trying to earn love that was never meant to be withheld. I'm done with that. And honestly, it feels like freedom. Segment 3540, no longer performing. I used to perform, all the time, even in silence. Every achievement was a quiet plea. Do you see me now? Am I enough yet? But nothing. I did ever open their eyes. Because they weren't closed, they were looking somewhere else, toward Brian. Toward a version of family that didn't include me fully. Now I no longer perform. I live. I work. I rest. I choose joy without needing it to be seen. Success still matters, but not as proof, just as possibility. Brian once said, "You're the bravest person I know." And I finally believed him. Not because I stood up at the will reading, but because I stopped asking for applause from people who never clapped. That's when I knew I was free. There's a power in telling your story before someone else rewrites it for you. For years, my parents controlled the narrative. Eleanor is strong. She doesn't need much. Brian just needs more support. But strength without care isn't a gift. It's isolation. Now I get to tell the truth. Not to shame them, not to settle scores, but to reclaim myself. Every word I write, every girl I mentor, every time I say I deserve better, I rewrite what was written over me. Brian's doing the same. He's applying for internships, making mistakes, learning how to fail without being rescued. We're not perfect, we're just real. And for the first time, that's enough. Sometimes I think back to the little girl I used to be, quiet in the back seat, watching birthdays happen from behind the window. She thought staying small was the way to stay safe, to stay loved. But small didn't protect her. It just made her disappear. I wish I could reach back and tell her, you don't have to earn your place. You already belong. Because courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Not this time, not again. That whisper at the will, reading in the cabin on the phone with Grandma, became my turning point. And the moment I chose not to disappear again, my whole life started to open. Brian and I talk a lot about what comes next. Not just careers, but the kind of lives we want to build. We both came from the same house, but not the same story. Still, we're building something new from the same pieces. Every Sunday, we meet without fail. Pancakes, coffee, no parents, just siblings. We laugh more now, about old wounds that used to sting but now feel lighter in the open air. We talk about boundaries, about parenting someday, about not repeating what we survived. Our bond didn't grow because everything was easy. It grew because we stayed when things got honest. Sometimes what we build from the broken is stronger than what was whole. Grandma Rose says it often now. You two are the turning point. And I feel that. Not as pressure, but as purpose. Because the cycle ends with us. No more silence disguised as peace. No more love tied to obedience. We've learned to say no, to set boundaries, to ask for care without apology. When Brian messes up, he doesn't hide. He calls me. And I don't fix it, I walk beside him. When I feel doubt creep in, I don't swallow it. I say it out loud. And he reminds me, you're not invisible anymore. We may not have had the family we needed then, but we're becoming it now, with every Sunday, every hard truth, every choice to stay. We're rewriting what family means. I used to think my inheritance was money, a condo, a letter, a courtroom moment. But now I know it was this, the courage to speak, the power to say, this happened to me and I'm still here. It's the quiet healing that echoes louder than applause. The bond rebuilt not from guilt, but from truth. It's the girls I mentor who now walk taller. The way Brian laughs, not to be liked, but because he's free. It's knowing I don't need their version of love anymore, because I've created my own. So if you've ever felt erased, overlooked, unseen, this story is yours too. You don't need permission to take up space, to rewrite the ending, to start again. Because sometimes the real inheritance is finally becoming who you were always meant to be. If any part of this story spoke to you, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experience in the comments, or just say, I see myself in this. And if you want more stories that speak to the heart, don't forget to subscribe. There's more healing, more truth, and more strength waiting for you here.